Game.
This is Game, a game where I game on game. I'm Drew Torres from Downright Superb, and this here game, Marvel's Spider-Man, or as it's colloquially known, Spider-Man PS4, it's complete trash, utter trash. And once again, I am intellectually isolated because this game is pretty much universally loved. But as a longtime Spider-Man fan, all of my life, I've indulged myself in everything Spider-Man. This game, I even 100% completed this game. So I know this game inside and out, and I know the character of Spider-Man inside and out. So if you love this game, Spider-Man PS4, prepare to get your feelings hurt, your little heart broken, because you are completely insane. First of all, this game puts most of its focus on the narrative, so that's where I'll start. They put so much emphasis on it that it handicaps every other aspect of the game, and it's not even worth it. This story sucks, and most importantly, it gets Spider-Man wrong. People have been championing this new version of the character and the world, but it's severely lacking in both aspects. Spider-Man himself is reckless, irresponsible, and clueless. A big set piece in the game involves a helicopter dragging around a shipping container that Spider-Man himself stuck to it. I feel like J. Jonah Jameson pointing this out, but all of this destruction and the prospects of hurting innocents were directly his fault. He also shows massive negligence when he ignores that Doc Ock is obviously going crazy from his new neurotechnology he's developing.
An intracranial implant could make things even worse. Even alter his personality. We need to proceed carefully.
There were multiple instances warning Peter Parker about the inevitable future, but even after Doc Ock freaks out and goes into a complete psycho rage, the doctor just says, "Oh, I'm sorry, Peter, you're right, I'll stop using the technology." And this idiot Peter Parker says, "Oh, well, what a relief, thank you." Meanwhile, Doc Ock just says psych and goes on to become a maniacal supervillain who floods the city with a bioweapon. Thank you, Spider-Man. This is another point that drives me nuts. This game artificially creates these super extreme dramatic elements. I didn't really want to get a Spider-Man game that contains a 9/11 simulator. Was this really necessary? They were working way too hard on trying to have a dramatic story when they should have focused more on creating a unique and engaging video game experience. Yeah, I'm finally Spider-Man. I'm gonna go down to the FEMA camps and high-five all of the highly contagious victims of a bio-attack. Woo! Kingdom Hearts 3 was such a great palate cleanser after this Oscar bait-like trash.
Herc! Sora! You take them. We need to save these people.
Donald! Goofy! We gotta do this quick!
Stand back!
I don't want to be dragged from a Spider-Man game to a limited story-focused stealth sequence with less game mechanics than a singular rudimentary Metal Gear Solid VR mission. Which leads me to Mary Jane. People are again praising this choice of direction. I see it as a complete disgrace. Mary Jane is portrayed as a spunky, go-getting journalist who becomes involved with the action. We've seen this stereotype many times before, originating with Lois Lane, Iris West, Vicky Vale, and countless others, not to mention that she has already taken this persona in the much maligned Ultimate Spider-Man animated series. Also, not to mention another female Marvel side character who was also recently changed to fit this bill. Karen Page in the Daredevil Netflix series. Karen Page has no comic book history of being a journalist, but now she's filling the iconic Ben Urich's role as New York's top crack journalist. Don't get me wrong, I don't dislike this MJ because it's different. I dislike it because it's unoriginal and it's shoehorned in to contrive the story and artificially add to the drama.
The closer I get, the better chance we have to stop them.
We?
You are not the Flash, Barry. We are.
We?
You could have also used Mary Jane's comic book history of acting and modeling to introduce other characters such as Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio, or even Patsy Walker, aka Hellcat. I do not understand what is the obsession with these side characters. I don't care if Mary Jane becomes a news anchor. I don't care if Aunt May is a heart surgeon, and if you're gonna do Miles Morales, go all the way. Either do a Miles Morales game or a Peter Parker game. Choose. Nobody cares about these side characters. People originally bought the Spider-Man comics for Spider-Man. Just focus on Spider-Man. The story is also pretty bland and forgettable. It mostly involves the investigation of a mysterious evil doomsday plan called Devil's Breath. I must have heard the characters mention it over 100 times. We've seen this a million times before. It's not interesting. Whoa, just what is this mysterious sounding evil thing? Devil's Breath. Oh, that doesn't sound good. That can't be good. We're gonna have to investigate this problem.
I think he's going to hear something called Devil's Breath.
Sounds destructive. What is it?
Devil's Breath. Whatever that is. PR-27 is Devil's Breath.
Devil's breath. Devil's breath.
We find Michaels. We find Devil's Breath. Devil's Breath. Devil's Breath.
Devil's breath.
Devil's Breath. Devil's Breath. Devil's Breath. The Devil's Breath anti-serum. Definitely Devil's Breath.
Arrow Season 4, Project Genesis. Daredevil Netflix, The Black Sky. Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery, Project Vulcan. Terminator Operation Genesis, The Genesis Initiative. A lot of these can be overlooked because they're either satirical or not the sole focus of the narrative, but they really harp on Devil's Breath, and they won't shut up about it.
Devil's Breath. Devil's Breath. Devil's Breath.
Devil's breath. Devil's breath.
Devil's Breath. Devil's Breath. Devil's Breath.
Devil's breath.
Devil's Breath. Devil's Breath. Devil's Breath. Devil's Breath. Definitely Devil's Breath.
Would you shut up?
They also botched the job on the villains. I applaud the fact that they used Mr. Negative, a more obscure and different villain, but he just has no depth and just wants revenge. While Doc Ock is the typical overly sympathetic villain, Doc Ock's new neurotechnology made him crazy, and it's not his fault. I know that Dr. Octavius has a bigger connection to Peter, but his villain turn would have made much more of an impact if he was in control of his own actions and had some understandable motivations. I know that this is staying close to the original comic book story, but there are so many opportunities to expand on these characters in the modern age. Just look at the Vulture in Spider-Man Homecoming. He's got so much more depth and is way more interesting than the original goofy comic book version. The definitive version of Doc Ock should be a more complicated person. Let's say he's a great scientist and very intelligent with a massive superiority complex. Maybe most of his work has been theoretical and it's difficult for him to get funding for his research. After years of bad luck, he's finally had enough. Maybe he's not trying to kill millions of people. Maybe he's just breaking into high security research facilities or robbing banks to fund his research. Also, the mechanical arms themselves shouldn't be important to his character. It's his brain. His brain is so advanced that he can use the mechanical arms to multitask and perform 2 or 3 highly sensitive experiments simultaneously. Maybe those goggles he wears are linked to cameras embedded in each arm. His genius brain has the capacity to process all of this information. With his arms, nobody can impede his scientific progress, and Spider-Man is just a bug on the windshield, just like everybody else. And let's say his mechanical arms aren't even that dangerous to Spider-Man at first. Maybe Doc Ock is easily dispatched, but he uses his massive intellect to help him escape. Plus, every time he comes back with a vengeance, he has some upgrades. Doc Ock should definitely fight Spider-Man more with his mind. He shouldn't just be a raving lunatic that Spider-Man punches. It's absolutely ridiculous to see Spider-Man punch him 1,000,000 times in the face anyway. He is a middle-aged human, and Spider-Man is a super-powered being. I don't care if he can feel the punch or not. One punch from Spidey should cave in his skull. Doc Ock should be so tactical with his arms that it's almost impossible for Spider-Man to break his defenses or catch him by surprise. But no. I would also say that the visuals as a whole are very lackluster. First of all, a lot of the cutscenes come off as very disingenuous. They're trying very, very hard to have these human moments with the facial capture, and it is quite good, but the characters' necks are so stiff. You can tell that the actors probably are wearing a bulky facial capture rig on their head. A lot of these animations are pretty lame too. Spider-Man spends most of his time in this alert walking animation. What the hell is this? He looks like some kind of pervert let loose in a preschool. And when Spider-Man flips and jumps around, he should look a lot more flexible, agile, and powerful. These are the limitations of motion capture. Spider-Man doesn't move like Spider-Man. He moves like a guy in a motion capture suit. Also, when Mary Jane crouches, her butt looks like a pair of runny eggs. They also focus too much on the visual fidelity when their focus should have been style. Yes, I have to admit that Spider-Man PS4 is technically impressive and realistic, but that can be very boring nowadays. When most games can look realistic, there is no style. It's not iconic. It's just another realistic looking city. Comparatively speaking, The Wind Waker is much lower on the technical scale, but its style is unforgettable. It has a timeless look and feel. I do have to admit that a lot of these suits do look good, but so does the cel-shaded comic book style suit. That looks as good as the rest of them. They could have gone with an overall visual style that fit this suit. In my opinion, they should have looked to the 90s Spider-Man animated series for inspiration. I'd rather have something distinct with a memorable look. Imagine how good those oranges, greens, and blues can look in a high-res world with some HDR. Or even look to some of Alex Ross's amazing paintings for inspiration. Yes, the city is technically impressive, but in the end, it's just flat to look at. The actual game world could have been from any modern game nowadays. It could have been from a GTA game, it could have been from Watch Dogs, I could have been looking at The Crew, etc. Allow me to iterate and make this perfectly clear. The story and visuals and characterizations in a game are not important. If the game, the actual game part of the game is solid, it's fun to play, it's well designed, well thought out. If that's good, then the rest you can ignore. But I want to make this perfectly clear that the story, the lore of this new Spider-Man is crap, and the next episode will explore why all of the game mechanics are crap. I'll also talk about my ideas for what should have been in a Spider-Man game. Yeah, it just, honestly, it makes me sad to think about because the game was a success and we're going to continue to get the same garbage again and again, and I'll never get the Spider-Man game that I want. So, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to go cry in the shower. If you guys want to leave a comment, question down below, remember that none of your ideas are good and you're not very smart. Anything you've you think you thought of, I've already thought of. And even if you have an idea, it's probably a bad idea. So don't bother commenting at all. Don't leave a message. You're useless.